Hi, I'm Laura Henry, and I am a craft dabbler, and I'm also an independent, close to my heart demonstrator. Today we're going to be making this project. It's a fall banner made with coasters, design space, and my Cricut, and close to my heart products. So I just wanted to show you in design space. I already designed this, but I went back in to show you the different cartridges and elements that I used to create this. So there you can see I used Artfully Sent font, and then I used the Flower Market cartridge for the flower, and the circle, just a plain old circle for the center of the flower. And that center didn't come with the flower, but I wanted to make my flower look just like the paper. Now I wanted to show you here, when you go to print it and you say make it, I wanted two of the flowers, I wanted two of the words fall. And so when you go in and you click on that mat, you can rearrange this. Now I'm using two different colors of paper to cut out the word fall, and so I placed one word fall at the bottom and one word fall at the top. I told it to cut black, but I knew that it was going to be in a different color. But if I have it all as one color and then I arrange it on my mat the way I want it, I can really cut two different colors on the same mat, and it saves a little bit of time. So you'll see the paper here in a minute, but I just wanted you to see how I'm rearranging these letters so that it fits together. So of course it doesn't spell fall here, but I don't really need it to. I just want to save as much paper as possible. So you can see how I arranged it. And there's the paper. Now this is the new Close to My Heart paper, is two-toned. And so it's the regular color is the darker one, and then they made it a tone lighter so that you can, coordinate and make shadows and highlights. I think it's, at first I wasn't really sure if I liked it, but now I really do like it. So these are just some coasters that I bought. Actually got them at a craft store on clearance, but I found them on Amazon. You can get 100 for like 15 bucks. And so I actually ordered some more to make some more projects with. So I measured them, and they're 4 by 4, and I'm only going to cover one side of them with some of the designer paper, and that is the Falling For You paper pack. So I cut them up into 4 by 4 pieces, and they're two-sided paper, so you can flip it over, and then I'm alternating one each side every other one. Then I'm using the broad tip glue pen, and that is a kind of a dual purpose pen. Uh, when the glue is blue like that, then it will be permanent. But if you wanted this to be repositionable, then you would let it dry out, and then it would be repositionable. So I want this to be permanent. So I was really putting a lot of glue on, and I was trying to get it around the edges. So I placed my paper on it, and then I always like to turn things over and rub on it because I can rub harder and I don't have to worry about messing up the pretty side of it. So while I'm putting this together, I'm cutting paper on my Cricut, and then pretty soon I have my Cuttlebug, and I'm just trying to keep things flowing to make the most of my time. So there was just a little bit of a sharp edge on the corners there, but the coasters had a little bit of a rounded edge, so I just used um, my scissors, the non-stick micro-tip scissors, to cut the edges off of that. So I did that for each one of the pages, and I'm not going to show it because I don't want a really long video. But then I used a lighter ink right here, but I'm just testing it to see what it's going to look like. But what I ended up doing was going with the Toffee ink. And I used the foam wedge, and it's a 3-inch circle, and I cut them in half. Then I cut those in half, and I cut them down into eighths. And then I like to do my inking with a foam wedge. And so I'm just dipping it into the ink, and I'm just going in a circular pattern. I'm trying to not make it real clumpy or have any lines. So I'm really kind of trying to be gentle as I'm doing my circles. And in fast motion, you can't tell that, but I'm really trying to be very gentle as I go around it. So I did that with each one of my 8 squares. 6 squares, sorry, can't count. And now I'm taking the Espresso ink pad and I am just rubbing it onto the edges of all of my coasters. And I am not being very gentle here. I am really rubbing and scrubbing that on there. And it gives it a little bit more definition. And I think it adds a little bit to that kind of antique-y look that I'm going for. So here you can see I'm peeling the excess paper off, and I'm going to save that because you never know when I can use those little scraps for something. And there's the darker, and I'm going to layer those on the bottom, and then I'm going to put the lighter colored paper on top, and I'm going to glue it kind of down and to the right just slightly so that it kind of makes a shadow. And then pretty soon I'm going to make a little highlight on them too. So here I'm just laying them out on the tiles, and I'm going to be using the dual action glue pen to glue them together. And I really like this glue pen an awful lot. And it's the same kind of glue as the broad tip glue pen. It can be permanent, or if you let it dry, it could be repositionable as well. But I really like the consistency of this glue, and I find it very easy to work with, and it sticks really well. This was the first time I'd used that broad tip glue pen, but I really liked it, and the paper really stuck on, and it stuck on around the edges of my coaster. So I was very pleased with the glue. So here I'm just gluing these two together, and then I'm going to glue it onto the tile. And you'll notice I try to keep my tiles arranged because it would be super easy for me to put those in the wrong order and have two of the florals next to one another or two of the polka dots, and I really want to alternate them. So I just have everything laid out the way I want it right now. And so I'm just kind of straightening it up, and I don't really measure, I just kind of eyeball things because sometimes measuring is, well, just not fun. So anyway, now this is the, let's see, that is the, let me find, I have it written down right here, the metallic marker. And what I'm doing is using that cutout piece that's left over, and I'm using it like a template, and I'm kind of laying it inside the cut edge and finding where I might want to highlight for each one of the letters, and then I'm just using that as kind of a template and drawing around it. So I don't think there's really a wrong way to do this. Just be consistent. Like if you're going to make your highlights on the upper part of it or the left side of everything, then just be consistent on each one of your letters. So I'm trying here to kind of go to the upper left side of everything. And, you know, sometimes it's not a perfect science. So I'm just kind of eyeballing what I think looks good. And I'm just going to do that to each one of my letters. And so this is a close-up of the patterned paper, and you see those leaves, some of them are solid leaves and some of them have half of it is shaded. And so this is the leaf die, and that is in the Seasonal Expressions catalog. And in the catalog it shows a very small picture, but it's really quite a big die. I didn't measure it, but I would say it's probably 2.5 inches long. And so even though I showed you at the beginning my Cricut design, that was after the fact. But right now I'm having the idea, like, what should I put on my end pieces? And I decided to use the leaf die because it matches the leaves in the paper, but also I'm going to try to make a flower that matches the flower in the pattern paper. And so I'm getting out my cuttle bug so that I can cut the leaves. But at the same time, I've designed that flower in Design Space, and I mean, the design's in there, but I put the circles in to make it look like the paper, and then I matched the colors to make it look like the paper. And so I sized it about 3 inches so that it would fit in the center of the paper. And so now I'm just cutting out those leaves, and I'm going to do 4 of that outside, the top part there with the veins. I'm going to do 4 of those. And then I'm going to do 2 of the back piece that's going to be a darker green, and I'm going to do 2 of them that are going to be solid and cover the whole leaf, and I'm going to make 2 that are going to be half leaves. So when I'm laying that solid die on the mat to do that, you know, I can make it a little bit bigger than half, and then I'm just gonna cut them down with my scissors, but you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute here. So I'm just repeating this because I have one die, and I'm just going to make 4 of them. And while I'm doing this, I've got my Cricut going in the background there, and I'm cutting out these flowers and the different layers. So there's a lot of kind of a gray or silver in that paper, and so I'm using pewter to outline the flower, and then I'm using Gold Rush, I think, for the flowers. And then I used Canary for the flower center. And I just flipped over the Gold Rush for the other part of the flower center because it's got that two-tone. So there's the outline of the flower. And then I just used the little scraper to scrape off my map. And so there I've completed the 4 outlines. And now I'm going to grab that solid leaf and I'm going to die cut the dark green for that. So that's why I keep my scraps, because you never know when you can have a small item such as this, or a little circle, or you might just need some small shape. So I try to keep all my colors together, even my scraps. I keep them with my full-size sheets so that I can easily find the right colors. And you know, I've got a ton of scrapbook paper, and it's not all close to my heart, but all of my close to my heart I keep together, and my other scraps I have bins for them because it's not so important to me about their colors. But I really love the close to my heart paper with the Cricut, and so I like to keep those papers together so that I don't get them mixed up with the other paper. It doesn't cut as well. So there I'm just using a piece of a post-it note tape to hold that die in place, because that was a real tight fit on that scrap, and I didn't want it to wiggle because my plates are a little bit warped. And there is the little circles that I cut for the centers of the flowers. And here I'm going to show you how it's all laid out. And I wondered if there was any wrong way to glue these outlines on, and they really are pretty symmetrical, so you could kind of turn it and it would still fit. And but that kind of worried me. So to keep my mat sticky, I try to put my cover back on it just as soon as I'm done cutting. And so they're, you know, I just grabbed them and put them on, and they seem to fit. So I think that if I could just turn it and to make it fit, it's gonna, you know, fit anyway. So there's the centers, and I didn't put those exactly in the center because in the picture the centers are just a little bit wonky, so I went with that. So I was kind of thinking about how am I going to place these on here, and in a minute I decide to glue the leaves down first and then glue the flower over the top of them. And I on the right side, the tile that goes on the right side, I made the leaves on the outside, and then on the tile that goes on the left, I put the leaves on the left side. So you can see I'm just lining these up, and then I'm going to use that dual action glue pen again on a piece of silicone mat, and I'm just going to use that glue to glue them together. And then I also use that dual action glue pen to glue the leaves onto the tile, and then the flowers onto the tile as well. And so here I'm just showing, and I did not glue every single little piece right there, but it kind of looks like I did, but I didn't. I just kind of was just kind of slopping it on, and it worked. So all in all, this whole project took about an hour and a half. It actually was a little less than an hour and a half from start to finish to do this whole entire project. So I don't think that's too bad. And it's really cute. I have this hanging in my entryway to my house now, and I would hang it up on my mantle, but the last time I hung something up there, the dogs were confused by it and they ripped it down. So this is gonna just have to go in the front entryway where they can't really get to it. And so there you see, and I put one with the half shading on each of the tiles, and one with the full shading on each of the tiles. And then I just put the flower over the top of it. So to hang this, I'm going to use my crocodile, and I'm just punching holes in the top two corners, and I was going to measure this all out and decide, but again, that was just too much work, so I just eyeballed it, and that kind of looked like a J upside down, didn't it? So I mean, I'm glad I got these right side up. This was did I mention the Artfully Sent font? That's another Cricut cartridge that I own, and that's what the font is. So this is the white burlap ribbon that I'm stringing through here, and when I say white, it's really kind of off-white or kind of tan looking, but we also sell a blue one. So I guess as opposed to blue, it is white, but it's really not a white white. But I started to measure it out, and then I just decided to leave it on the spool, and I just kind of eyeballed it. So I want the tiles to have some give between them, maybe a couple inches. So I tied these together with them apart, and then I just kind of pulled on them to make the bow tighter. And I kind of frayed the edges of the ribbon a little bit while I was fiddling around with it. And so I just took my scissors and I cut a nice angled edge on both sides of the bow just to make it look clean and pretty. And then I did that with each one of the tiles. And then on the ends, I just tied a knot, and then I trimmed the end of the ribbon, and then I probably left kind of a tail on it, maybe about 10 inches or so. And then I did that both on the left and the right, and so that I would have a place to tie it with, or I was even thinking of using thumbtacks or some kind of like plastic tack to hang it up on the mantle. So you could hang it however you want. And you could, put a bow at the end as well, and just not, have those long streamers on it. But that's how I decided to hang mine. And so there it is, all laid out. And so I'm going to show you some pictures of it hanging up in my entryway. And it's kind of like a little coat rack thing, but I don't use it for coats. So there it is. And there's the flower, and you can see how it looks like the flower in the pattern paper. So thanks for joining me today. The supplies can be found in the Annual Inspirations Catalog as well as the Seasonal Expressions Catalog. And if you don't have a close to my heart demonstrator, I'd be happy to sell these things to you. And there was my address, and these are the supplies. Thanks for joining me. Bye.